Hi, everybody. I'm Katey Sagal.
Hi, Katey Sagal.
Hi, sweetheart. Who are you?
Oh, I am the lesser half of the Sagal Sutter union. I'm Kurt.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say lesser half.
That's what I was waiting for.
You were you
That's what I
fished
needed.
and you
That's what I
caught
needed.
it. Yes. And this is Pie. This is our podcast, a homecast. That's what my little script says. And what does Pie stand for?
People, pineapples,
No.
people, influence, and experience.
That's right. That's what it is. How are you, honey?
Nature, nurture.
By the way, how are you?
For some reason, I woke up like I smoked all night.
Really?
Yeah, my throat's all.
I think it's too much sauna and cold plunge.
No, that's my fucking drugs right now, baby. Do not take away the hot and cold.
Me too, actually.
Ooh,
Yes.
It's the only legal endorphins I can purchase.
Anyway, welcome to our show. We have a really fun guest today that I've not actually totally met personally, but I've seen her. I've admired her. I think she's beautiful, hysterically funny. I think I'm really looking forward to chatting with her because I actually do not know that much about her, even though she's very famous. But it just goes to, I just don't know a lot about famous people. How about that? What about you?
They don't know a lot about themselves, Katey. So
anyway, shall we introduce?
Yes. Oh my God. Feel like
Are you okay?
No, I feel like, I have a little tuberculosis today.
No.
I woke up with a little,
Whitney Cummings is here with us. Yay.
the one thing I didn't hear you doing is steam. Steam is what's right. You're doing the sauna and the cold plunge, but isn't steam what breaks up the tuberculosis?
I do have a steam shower as well, but
So maybe that's today instead of a sauna.
yeah, maybe I'll do a little spritz in the steam.
You can just tell.
I will relapse right now in my people pleasing caretaking recovery to try to fix whatever's going on with you.
Okay, great.
I think
We'll
it could
take
have
it.
been. I was sleeping in an odd position to avoid the loud noise coming at me.
Oh, thank you so much. He actually woke up in the middle of the night and said, honey, do you have one of those strips you can put on your nose?
You have some duct tape to put on your mouth?
That would work too. And then he said, and then I kind of, found my strip and he said, I'll go sleep in my office, which is totally uncomfortable. I was like, no, it's okay.
Do you know how much money I would pay to have Katey Sagal make any noise next to me in a bed?
Oh,
Yeah,
right on, Whitney.
Girl, you got a free cameo. I would pay a lot of money for that cameo.
you say that after 11 sleepless nights, darling.
No. Well, only 11. That's very good.
I'm fascinated that you're doing the cold plunge. Would you say, as I see this all over my social media, all these men doing this, thing where they're like, I need to wake up and do something to feel uncomfortable. Like men are so comfortable. Whereas women are like, I'm going to walk to my car at night. Like everything's uncomfortable at all times. We walk on martini glasses and we have fish wire between our butts at all times. And you guys are like, how do I feel uncomfortable? I have to get some ice. Would you say it's more for inflammation or more for the mental, effects?
I think it's both, right? I'm old. I still train I have a body that's 40 years younger, and so
Awesome.
some of it is that, but I am an anxious individual, and it really helps a lot with the flight or fight response.
Yeah.
And here's what else it does. It forces me to work on my breathing, which, as we know, is what centers us. And because there's no other way when you plunge to maintain or stay in it. So I would say it's both, but at a certain point in the second plunge, the endorphins kick in and I am in a cold pond with my Nordic ancestors and we're bonding,
Have you done it?
I have not done the cold plunge. I grew up poor and we didn't have hot water, so I cold plunged my entire childhood. I feel like I got it. I have, however, done the cryo freak.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Similar.
I enjoy it because whether it's effective or not, because people are going to go, that's not as effective as the ice bath. Blah, blah, blah. Look, placebo effect is an effect. We all have to just embrace the fact that, placebo effect is something like 60% effective, where most medications are only like 30, 40s. I kind of want to open like a practice that's just placebo effect.
I think if you say that, it ruins the effect.
Placebo effect.
Tell anyone.
So you can't call it placebo anything.
You got to call it works.
But there's something to be said about, like, I'm working on this skincare thing and it's an oil and I want to just call it snake oil. Like, I like the idea of leaning into, because everything ends up being a con anyway. So just saying we're a con, it's placebo effect. People are like, oh, well, it's clearly not. They wouldn't call it that if it was. Oh. So it's like a little mind trick. But I do really appreciate, something that I've been working on is in general, just being able to be a witness to my inner monologue. And I now like to look at it almost like I'm watching, like Star Wars or some crazy fiction movie, because some of the thoughts we have, you're just like, whose thought is that? Like, that's when you're like, I'm fat or I'm stupid, or you're just like, whose words are those? Is this ancestral? Is this me? All these words, we have the inner bully, the inner, critic, whatever. And I used to believe my thoughts. Mm-hmm. And now I don't feel that way. But when I do the cryo freeze, I hear them so loud.
Really?
When you're that cold.
Wow.
Like, I can't do this. I'm going to die. And then to be able to just go, no, you're in California, you are not going to die. You can open that door any minute, but how quick my brain goes to like, it's over, like you were just talking about.
Right.
And it's something that I remember I have this therapist who's kind of more like a sponsor figure. And, when you first start going to therapy, it's almost like, you guys, I hope know that I'm not actually criticizing, but there is a little bit of an over therapication of people where they're actually using whatever they get diagnosed with as an excuse to be even worse people.
Oh, of course.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like the people are like, well, my attachment style is touch, and like touching another woman while we're dating. I don't think that's why you cheated. It's sort of like, there's always some, my dad didn't throw the baseball when I was a kid and he abandoned me. And you're like, you're 55. That's why you slept with the stripper, because the baseball. And I did say to my, therapist, I didn't want to be with someone, and I couldn't just say that. I couldn't say, I don't want to be in this relationship. I had to turn it into I'm afraid of being abandoned, so I'm just going to leave before they leave me. And she just went, Whitney, adults can't be abandoned. You have a car.
Wow.
Like,
I like
just
that therapist.
Yeah.
She's a gangster.
I love that.
And then
it's the whole concept, we overuse our brains. It's a Jungian thing that says the brain that creates the problem cannot solve the problem. But, we get all fucked up with it, and we think we're so smart, and we think if we can tie it all together that then somehow the behavior will change and the blah, 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 blah will change, when it's really, as we all know, right. It's what we do, not what we think.
Yeah, the action
is what has to change.
That's what helped me so much when she told me, you're not responsible for your first thought, but you are responsible for your first action.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So a big part of my life is just like, that's a crazy thought. No. The way that you go shopping, you don't just grab the first shirt you see. You're like,
you don't?
No. Well, look,
I'm working on that.
Because you go through the, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What is it?
You want to grab that "Make America Great Again" shirt before you want through all of them.
Is it, who's the big podcaster? Is it Meg Robbins? Is that her name? Or
Mel
Robbins. And her, like, she has this thing where it's, when you wake up in the morning, never stay in bed. Get the fuck up. Like, get up.
I agree with that.
Because when you wake up and start thinking, it's not going to be a beautiful day, right?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I have to get them to stop the thing.
Oh yeah,
lawn blower.
We're cutting down the trees from
Patrick,
the mudslide.
I just thought that was my inner monologue.
No, Patrick, can you ask them to stop outside, or ask Jill to ask them to stop? It's just too annoying.
Till we're done.
Till we're done.
Yeah. They can just...
By the way, LA, that's your leaf blower, but LA is such a funny place to live. One time I was shooting a movie and the leaf blower from the next door neighbor was on, and they had to kind of go, we have to ask the neighbor to, turn off the leaf blower. It was Slash, and no one wanted to tell Slash to stop leaf blowing. Like
he was leaf blowing?
He was leaf blowing.
That's so fantastic.
I love that. Leaf blowing is really fun.
And we're all like, his leaf blowing sounds better than other people's. Like, it's like, of course it's like sick, but.
Oh, man.
So, honey, I was realizing that one of our new sponsors, this is one of the facts they said, that 90% of their time indoors, Americans, they did not, we spend 90% of our time indoors, but did you know that indoor air can be up to 100 times more polluted than outdoor air?
Well, yeah, if you have kids.
Yes. And
Absolutely.
pets, I suppose.
And pets, come on.
Oh, boy.
No, I didn't know that. And I guess it makes sense. Well, even before the fires and the big concern with air quality, we've always been a little bit nuts about that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Mainly because you have allergy stuff and me because I'm just insane. But one of our new sponsors is Air Doctor.
Right, airdoctorpro.com. And this is a very good air purifier, and we have them in our house since the wildfires. And, you know, we got evacuated for a couple of weeks and had to set up a whole sort of system. And now we have these air doctors, and they're working really well.
Yes. I think we've reduced the percentage of pollutants in our
Yes, I think so too. So I think we're safer indoors than outdoors. What do you think?
Well, that's why I never leave the house.
So if you're interested in this, you should head to airdoctorpro.com and use the promo code PIE, P-I-E, to get up to $300 off today. Air Doctor comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee plus a 3-year warranty. That is an $84 value.
So, and you get this exclusive podcast-only offer now at airdoctorpro.com. That's airdoctorpro.com.
It's pretty easy to remember. airdoctorpro, one word,
yeah.
.com.
And .com, that's how you get to places on the internet. I don't know if you know that. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. For telling me.
Promo code PIE.
Yes.
Katey, would you say that you have concerns about your diet and what you eat and how you eat and how much you eat?
Absolutely. Yes.
Would you say that you have tried many, many different ways and systems and programs of eating?
I wouldn't quite say I'm a yo-yo dieter, but yeah, I've definitely been obsessed with my weight most of my life. I will cop to that.
And the answer is never diet. It's always, as we know, finding the healthier way to eat.
Right. So here's our new sponsor.
Yeah.
Our new sponsor is called Lean, Lean, which is something that, has been my goal for a long time. So I like that that's the name of it. And Lean promises you that it will help you lose weight without gaining it back. And if you want to lose meaningful weight, which I'm not quite sure what meaningful weight is.
Well, that's weight you don't keep putting back on.
Oh, I see.
And it's losing fat rather than muscle, all the things that healthier eating or better eating provides.
And I think what it does is it helps you to maintain a healthy blood sugar, so then you're not craving
right
extra foods.
Without
sweets.
injections and without the latest whatever. It does provide the same benefits. Doctor created and effective.
So I'm going to get you started with a 20% off when you enter PIE20.
You're so kind.
At takelean.com. That's code PIE20 at takelean.com. I want to know about you. Tell us what we like to do. I want to know where you're from, and I want to know
all of this, everything we're talking about now is
have you have brothers
part
and
of it. Yeah,
all that stuff.
Oh gosh,
we want to know the. We're talking about the nature, but we want to know the nurture part. Like, where it all began when you were
comfortable.
There wasn't a lot of nurture. My parents were alcoholics, so there wasn't a ton of nurture, but by absence of that ended up being my nurture, I suppose. So I grew up in, I'm sure y'all relate. We all have the story of what our childhood was. And as you get older and start going like, that's not what happened, is it? There's the family story and then there's the truth, which you'll never really know, I guess. Both my parents have passed away, and when, they both had strokes, and something happens when your parents pass where you have a little bit of like permission to go, okay, now I'm allowed to acknowledge that a lot of this was bullshit and a lot of these were lies. And I was going along with this like bad improv game of their denial, because I was like, what am I going to say? Hey, my gut tells me that's not what happened. And they're just like, well, I'm a malignant narcissist. I can't see the truth. Like, there's no point. I think at a very young age, I just went like, you're banging your head against a wall, just enter into their reality. I developed the skill of being able to enter into a delusional person's reality and not deny it. It was too dangerous to deny it. And as a kid, when your gut says like, why are they fighting? Why are they fighting? And they're like, we're not fighting. We're fine. Everything's fine. We're not fighting.
Hate
or
that.
when, or mom's drunk and you're like, Mom, I don't think you can drive. Yeah, I can. Everything's fine. You start just going, well, everyone's telling me I'm wrong, so I just must be crazy. I'm crazy and I'm always wrong. So I'm not going to trust my gut anymore. So I really disconnected from my gut. So I didn't really know what happened for a really long time. But I grew up in Washington, D.C. in sort of the early parts of my years, but spent the summers in a place called Roanoke, Virginia. And ultimately my parents, were not able to care for me, and, they were, divorced. Shocker. And I ended up moving to a place called Roanoke, Virginia, and I lived with my aunts on a farm. So I went kind of back and forth, and I know my inner monologue right now is going, you're being boring, you're being boring.
Yeah, well, that's just fantastic.
But when I talk about this, I didn't realize how many people were raised by people who weren't their parents, that were sent to live with their grandmothers or their aunts or their uncles, and something, thank God I got to live out in Virginia in a rural place for a million reasons, but I got to live around horses. And so I really say like I was raised by horses in a way. Thank God that was my saving grace, because horses are direct and they're honest, and they don't hold grudges. And the way that the herd works really taught me a lot about, I was diagnosed with having Asperger's and being autistic and all these things, nonverbal and whatever. But as soon as I was around horses, I felt like I was able to communicate, because it's all physical with them. Verbal words usually get in the way of what we're trying to say, right? And I learned, to say what you mean what you say, don't say it mean. And I learned how to actually communicate in an honest way, because I grew up in, we're fine, everything's fine. Not like, and I never, everything felt like opposite land for me.
Do you have brothers and sisters? Do you have brothers?
Yes, I have a sibling, and something else that happened that I realized is more common than I thought is when I went back, I lived with my mom and my sister lived with my dad.
Oh, wow.
Which is, it's so funny you say that, because, you default to your parents going, well, they're the adults, so they must be making this must be the right thing.
Right.
And you just have to adjust to it. It also was something that was so embarrassing that I didn't really talk about it. Like, my friends didn't really know that. I'd pretend I was at my dad's. I would lie and say that we lived in the same place. So I'm still kind of untangling all this without overthinking about myself, of what exactly my childhood was. But it was a lot of, people that weren't ready to be parents, making a lot of mistakes. But instead of being angry or upset, because it's like we forgive others not because they deserve forgiveness, because we deserve peace, I'm kind of just trying to untangle it just so I don't repeat anything with my son, and so that I break the cycle.
What I find from growing up that way, I have a similar story, is that we become really adaptable, and that's the good news. That's the good news. It's the flip side of the coin of becoming whoever you need me to be, is that we become adaptable. And
I mean, literally, you became an amazing actress.
I think that was part of that. Well, thank you for saying that. But I think that is, I remember growing up feeling like, oh, I'm sort of chameleon-like. I just can morph into whatever is needed to be.
But also the idea of just hearing you say that, like, I realized my parents were, the truth is there was no realization. Like, on a cellular level, your psyche, your processes, your signals just learned how to, evolve in the wrong way. Right. And that's the part that, as you talk about untangling, that's what needs to be untangled, because it wasn't like you're saying, all right, now I know this is bullshit, but I'm going to believe it. It's you have to survive, and you go click. And it's that first move away from truth, right? And then click, 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 click. And you're not aware you're doing it until you're older. And then you look back, and then it's trying to, oh yeah. And then the power of it is clarity. The power of it is finding our truth. But for me, every time I get rid of one of the clicks, I'm go, oh, there's another one.
The tricky thing, is also going, I got a lot of really amazing skills out of it. And look, maybe this is just, meaning making or coping, but my first drug was fantasy. Was checking out. I was in the basement of, my aunt's house. They didn't have kids, so they very much just treated me like an adult. And there was an abusive male adult. And I pretty quickly went, y'all are not it. Like I bought the bullshit, and I knew how to be a chameleon, like you're saying, and shapeshift. I was an adult, with the adults, I was able to do whatever I needed to do. I can be a Browns fan. I'm an Eagles fan. I'm whatever you need me to be. I can walk on eggshells. I can shapeshift. I mean, I was literally going back and forth from a very cosmopolitan area of DC to a rural area of Virginia. I would go back and I would have the accent in Virginia, lose the accent when I went back to DC,
Wow.
Truly.
Kind of like Madonna. You could sort of just speak wherever you were.
Good for her.
Yes, absolutely good for her. I agree. I love Madonna.
I will beat myself up over accidentally interrupting you on this podcast for months. She didn't give that a second thought. Like, good for her. Meghan Markle, good for you. I appreciate delusional people. I'm like, good for you. Like,
it's adaptable.
It's a drug that works, and you never have to quit. No one makes you quit. They give you money. So I do get a little bit obsessed with the idea of like trauma privilege. At a very early age, I was writing stories. I was writing, to check out as if I was another person in a journal. This is so dark. I would pretend I was in commercials when I would eat. Because I also remember seeing my dad would watch Rodney Dangerfield, and he'd watch SNL. My dad looked exactly like Dan Aykroyd, and he would sign autographs as Dan Aykroyd.
It's great.
His psyche should be studied. Like, it is so dark, but and then, cut to me at 22 when I first moved to Los Angeles to make money. I was doing, studies for cash. And I would sell headshots of Susan Sarandon on eBay that were forged. So look, the apple didn't fall far. But every day we hustling, and I just wanted my dad's attention more than anything. And he would watch TV and he would laugh. And I remember the moment where I said, I gotta get in that box.
How old?
I remember the moment.
How old were you?
5, 6.
Wow. Wow.
I remember it so vividly, because I remember like looking at the TV and being like, do I crawl in it? Like, how do I get in there? That's what everyone's looking at. That's what my dad comes home and looks at,
right.
And and then I would see commercials, and I would see, I was so desperate for his attention when we would drive from DC to Roanoke, when there was a billboard, and it'd be like a McDonald's billboard of a kid like eating a fry. And it would also say exit 27, right? And then there's the ad, and he'd look and go exit 27. I go, how do I get on the billboard? How do I eat the fry? I got to eat the fry, because he'll see it. So I remember I would practice like eating like Oscar I practiced being interviewed by Oprah, like talking about
I think
whatever.
That's kind of healthy, I want to say. My fantasy to get attention was that I was suddenly in the hospital with an incurable disease, and everybody that was mean to me came to my bedside and was sorry.
Huge.
From a little kid, from like being a little kid. I'm just going to like be in the hospital with an incurable disease.
See, I would have gone that way, but I caught on fire when I was... Yeah, at least make it curable. Kate. I caught on fire when I was like 7 or 8 because my parents would never pay the bills. There were never, and I caught on fire. I would get dressed on the stove and I caught on fire. I'm fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Why dressed on the stove?
Why dressed on the
because I was cold.
Oh, God.
And as a kid, you just I was a parentified child. You would just be your own parent. At a very early age, I went, these people cannot solve any of my problems. When I do go to ask for something, I overwhelm them. I stress them out. Maybe this is relatable to people. I was an accident. Absolutely. My mom would call me a surprise. And from a very young age, like I knew there was no space for me, that I was already pushing it, that I had to overachieve and be like self-deprive as to not tax the already established system.
Wow.
Like it was just everyone was too overwhelmed. And there was the divorce and my dad would break into my mom's apartment and take the art and they would break into each other's houses in the night, like just total chaos, did not handle things particularly well. And so at a very early age, I knew that like my existence was pushing it and I have to earn my keep here. I was always strategizing like, okay, should I clean? Should I cook? Should I learn a talent? what should I do? And I didn't think of it as, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Like you have nothing to compare it to. So you're just like, okay, I'm going to, in between my interviews with Oprah and,
overachiever, would you say overachiever? Just, I'm going to do everything. Perfectionist, overachiever.
Or recopying the notes at school. Got to get straight A's. My dad did value academic excellence. Right. And so from a very early age, I was like, that's what I'm going to, that's how I'm going to get his attention. It's really all just how do I get this person's attention.
Well, I can't wait to get to the part of like how that's translated into your adult life.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah. No, it's,
wow. Daddy.
It's, I spent a lot of time in the basement as a kid as well. I had the added benefit of being morbidly obese as well, which, is always a lot of fun growing up. But it's where I learned how to tell stories.
Cool.
Not just because of the imagination, because I was usually terrified of my dad's reaction. And it wasn't an abusive thing as much as it was a psychological thing. But I remember concocting lies to protect myself, where I would I would create the backstory. I would have an answer to every answer. And at a very early age, I developed the skill of building mythologies.
Whoa. Was your dad, that generation of,
it was distance. It was, again, overwhelmed. Yeah. Overwhelmed. And my dad, softened, if you will, as he got older and more vulnerable. But some of it was generational. Some of it was, he was desperately unhappy in the circumstance and decided, he was of the generation he believed that you don't leave. You stay and you fucking figure it out and you're miserable. That's what marriage was. Right. And
to be clear, that's not what it is.
That's not what it is at all. And so what I'm hearing is that we're all really good liars. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And we learned that skill at a very, in a detailed and precise way.
You're lying to yourself first. If it's your truth, is it a lie?
I do believe so. Yes, I do. I think lying to myself was my biggest problem, as what I would say as I approached recovery, because my whole life was a denial.
You're saying something that's really making me want to admit something because being smart was my survival instinct, which to be liked by my dad, no one likes a know-it-all. It's annoying, but I think for me, I was always like, oh, well, when I first got into examining myself and wanting to break the cycle and recover, and attack sort of the mothering, micromanaging, martyring. Like, why am I caretaking adults? Oh, because I did it as a child. I was my parents' parent, and, I'm deluding myself into this. I'm deluding myself into that. And I had to break that down even further and go, oh, wait, maybe I wasn't even deluding myself. Maybe I didn't even know. And to admit that I didn't know something, or admit that like, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know. Like, that was so hard for me to admit, that I wasn't this like kid genius who knew everything and knew the psychology of all my parents and was deluding myself into thinking that they were this kind of person. Like, I was like, or I just didn't know and I was naive, and it's okay to say that.
Isn't it great? It's so freeing to finally be able to say that.
I didn't know better. And
Right.
like, that means on some level, I guess I'm dumb, like, because that would translate to you're dumb.
Right,
you have no value, because your intelligence and your usefulness to other people is the only value you have. And then to go like, people used to ask me directions and I'd be like, if I didn't know them, why would I? I was like, okay, I'm pretty like I would figure it out. And I'm like, I don't know. I couldn't just say, I don't know.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
I couldn't say, I did not
You're
utter
like
the
my
phrase,
husband.
I don't know, until I was 10 years sober. And unconsciously, and
Or I can't do it.
Well, wait till you have a child. Well, you've just had a child. Am I correct? So suddenly, I don't know is like a banner over your head. And I find it, so once I had children, it was also once I got sober, but it was just such a relief to be humble enough to say, I don't know fucking how to change a diaper, swaddle a baby. I don't know how to get dressed in the morning. I didn't know a lot of things that I thought you had to know. So,
and it's so fascinating because no one even likes someone that knows everything.
I know.
We give people so much joy by asking for help. Like, when someone asks me something I do know about, I'm so stoked to help, or so stoked to share that. So I'm like, why don't I give other people that gift? I've been like, hey, I don't know how to change this diaper. Could you help me? Like, instead of me trying to figure it out,
right.
Why not just ask for help? So I think it's also a way to isolate. I found out it was like, I know everything. So I don't have to ask anyone anything. I don't have to talk to anybody. I just get to be this sort of, island of a person where nobody can hurt me and no one can disappoint me. And I didn't trust that I wouldn't fall for someone's con. George Haas, who does this meta practice, he was at Against the Stream. And I took this like attachment strategy course, and he describes it as the people, we call them Christmas trees, where you can just walk in a room of 50 people and the most broken, saying they're separated, but they're not.
Hello. Been there.
Adrenaline junkie, mercurial, person. I'm just, all these, the healthy people, get out of my way. Someone needs to be fixed. And they just recreate this neurochemical, our body is addicted to our past 101. Learning that is what made me so humble of okay, I'm subconsciously seeking the internal drug cabinet of the same neurochemicals of complete chaos, unpredictability, daily auditioning for approval, never knowing when the shoe was going to drop.
Is it getting better? Is it getting better? That's what I want.
It's so much better.
Okay.
It's great. It's a total, I did an adrenaline detox. I'm sober off adrenaline. If I need to be somewhere at 5:00 and it takes half an hour to get there, I'm leaving at 3:30.
Right.
Right.
No, the reason I say that is I too have that experience. This is my third marriage that I'm on. And those first two were definitely broken people that needed, they were just fixer-uppers, spot on images of my mother with shades of my father. And what I've learned, though, ultimately, is that on this third go round, it is so much better. And it's so much I'm not threatened by, I was threatened by people's success. I couldn't go out with a dude that was super successful because I would think, why does he need me? I mean, where am I going to fit in here? You're going to And it's completely
I need to be your
changed.
nurse.
I need to be your nurse so you won't leave
I
me.
Keep the insulin.
I need to support you. I need to do whatever, all the shit. And what I love about life and recovery and change is that, there's improvement. Why the fuck go through all the stuff we do in recovery if there's not going to get better? I mean, really.
It's interesting. What you're saying is, I do equine.
Oh, nice.
It's it's called Liberty Agala. It's really just about being with horses, and because they're mirrors to your fears and your insecurities and your just gross shit. And because they make you realize that everything boils down to fear. And because horses are prey animals, of course, like their only reward is serenity. And the only thing they don't want to be a part of is fear, because they don't understand fearing anything except a mountain lion. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The idea of wanting to get a selfie with the horse, or being worried the horse isn't going to like you, or the horse walked away. What does that mean? That to them just boils down to mountain lion. Mm-hmm. And if you're wrong about your fear enough times, they just see you as sick and they don't want to be near you.
Wow.
So the things we used to fear lions and,
right.
tigers. Now we fear, like, is my dead dad not going to like me? Like, what kind of person spends any energy on that? And they're grazers, so they have to be economical. So equine therapy has really done a lot for me. One of the biggest, the hardest obstacles in equine therapy is not using treats or carrots or any of that, because it's cajoling. And what you're saying is, I'm not enough. You're not going to like me. I got to give you a treat. And if you do it, you'll always wonder why they're around you. And you're setting yourself up for not being able to have unconditional love. You've created this prison of then basically fortifying your very fear of going, well, no one loves me for me. But you're the one that didn't lead with you. You lead it with the treat.
Tell me more about, so what does that mean? You go someplace and you hang out with horses and somebody guides you through that kind of stuff?
Totally. And in that epiphany, I had the realization I prefer to be used than to be loved, because at least I understand the transaction.
Right.
Yes. So it sounds kind of elitist or something. I rescue horses that were abused. Horses, the way that we deal, they call it breaking a horse for a reason, because they're breaking its spirit. So the horses that we see there is a little bit of an epigenetic imprinting element to this. I don't know if y'all at all are into family constellation.
No, don't know what that is.
I'm going to get in trouble no matter what I say from here on out. But whether it's real, it's like psychics. It's like, you've gone to one that nailed it, but you're also like, I don't think I believe in psychics. I believe in that psychic, because, maybe they just reflected to me what I couldn't even see. I went to the psychic for a while. I was like, she's so psychic. And then I realized I was like, or is she just listening when I talk? Are we all psychic? We all just we're not listening when someone else is talking. You're trying to think of the next thing you're going to say, or do I look stupid, or, and we're all in our own heads. The way I would say something is like, I think, I'm trying to figure out if I should date this guy, Chris, who's like really amazing, but like, or this guy, Ted, who is like so awesome. He's so on top. And you already know who I'm going to pick based on the way I just said that. Like, you already know who's right for me based on what my body just did. Right. And so I guess she was just able to, reflect back to me what I already knew on some level. And horses do that. They show you your own energy. And I'm trying to make this concise. Like, my brain is like, cause there's so much to say sort of about horses and the way that horses have evolved. They basically can read your thoughts if you're connected to them. But what we do when we break them is we shut them down. I always have had a really intense connection with them. And so much so that I couldn't live in New York. I had a job that I was doing there. I was engaged to someone that lived there. But when I'd hear the horse carriages, I would uncontrollably sob. I mean, I one time didn't do the David Letterman, like I was on the way and I just heard it and I was just sobbing, and it was, look, yes, if it's hysterical, it's historical. And I was like, something else is going on here. This isn't like I'm an empath. Like, yes, I'm the person who, if there's a dog in a hot car, I do carry a hammer with me and I slam. It's illegal. Okay. When it comes to abusing animals and kids, like I go out of body. Like, it's not. So I'm thought of as the crazy animal lady who, remember during the Woolsey fires, the giraffe, there was that giraffe in Malibu.
Right.
Yes.
That was me. That was like, well, I'm going to go get the giraffe. Like this, there's no question in my mind. And I guess obviously maybe I'm projecting a little as a girl that was, I see animals as like children that are stuck in a situation they can't get out of. They can't email, they can't make phone calls, so,
they don't really want to make emails or phone calls, maybe.
So there's something called family constellation, which is pseudoscience, whatever, and it basically just is about the ancestral guilt and shame that you carry. So epigenetic imprinting, like studies have shown, if you electrocute a mouse while it's smelling a cherry blossom, its offspring, when it smells a cherry blossom, will recoil to the... So in one generation, your fears will imprint on the next person, right? So guilt, shame, why not? Whether it's nature or nurture, whether, you got it because it was put on you verbally on a daily basis, or if your mother was never even around you and you still inherited it. I was talking to this family constellation person. I was just throwing anything at the wall. And she's like, there's something going on with your like great-great-great-grandfather. I'm like, yeah. Slaves, probably, I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure that she's like, no, he did something like unforgivable. And I'm like, yeah, alcoholic. Everyone was an alcoholic until like 20 minutes ago. What are you talking about? And, she's like, something unforgivable. It was kind of interesting because she said, and his wife used silence to punish him. And I was like, that's my thing. That's like a family trait. Which you've talked to me long enough. Silence usually isn't a punishment, if you're dating me, but, so then even if none of it's true and it just inspired me to make this phone call, we have a thing in our family where nobody asks questions. There's no questions. Right. No one asks about anything. Are they still married? Are they divorced? My dad had cancer. Didn't tell anyone. No one tells anyone. Everything's just very secretive. And you're only as sick as your secret. So lucky us. I don't really talk to most of my family. It was a hard boundary for me. But I have this uncle who's super awesome. And I called him and just ask your family. I mean, they might spill something you're not ready for. Like when I was a year old, I was crawling around and the family story was that I took a painkiller at a neighbor's house who had a back injury. And I almost died and I went to the ER and they put charcoal down, but I survived and I flatlined and I came back. And that was the whole thing is you can never kill Whitney. She's, invincible. And I told the story to my therapist and she's like, that's not what happened. Why a baby was at a guy's house was a back surgery. Like none of this is true. And then finally, like a couple of years ago, I asked my uncle, I was like, whatever happened with the thing where I took the painkiller? He was like, oh, when you took the Quaalude at the belly dancer's house. I was like, what? And so it's amazing. There's always one person in the family who just like has Tourette's and doesn't know the rules. And I called him about, so my great-great-great-grandfather, like, did he do something unforgivable by chance? And he's like, oh, he died of, cirrhosis, was just going on. And I was like, okay, well, that doesn't seem like something I carry, with me necessarily. I mean, I do try to save alcoholics, that's my kink. But he was like, yeah, anyway, so he had a really bad injury because, he actually invented this contraption that helped keep horse carriages together, but he didn't patent it properly and someone else patented it. But he was like responsible for horse carriages being able to continue functioning. So it was like, I carry.
Oh yeah. Trauma.
Making horse carriage, like this abuse that haunts me today, maybe everyone has a version of that in their family and whatever. But when I see horse carriages, I like can't breathe.
Wow.
And
that must have all made sense. But boom.
Whatever it is, it was just when I see a bird in a cage, I can breathe fine.
Right.
But it's just something about this specific thing that I do think that I inherited. And I think it's really healing, whether it's delusion or not, to go like, okay, this isn't all my fault. Like a lot of this is a train that left the tracks 300 years ago.
And you know what? Maybe it's placebo. Maybe it's not. Just like what you said, maybe it's real. Maybe it's not. Whatever it is, if you believe it and it hooks up to you, then that's a way to get over it, to get through it.
If you're super afraid of heights, that probably meant a bunch of your ancestors fell off cliffs.
Look at me.
Look. Yeah. That's a fear that is supposed to make you safe. I see some people, Chelsea Handler once I saw, if she even hears that a snake is around, she jumps on a table. Right. This is one of the most fearless human beings I've ever met. But the idea of there's a gardener snake, just pick it up and throw it. It's fine. So it's like, yeah, I'm sure some of your ancestors were bitten by snakes. There's certain fears.
I still can't get over somebody electrifying a mouse while it was sniffing a cherry blossom.
You know what? As I said it,
it's just the most awful experiment I can.
There's more awful ones. As I am a parent now,
right?
As I'm a parent, this is, by the way, it's interesting because as soon as for everyone listening, and I don't have to tell you, there's so much whack-a-mole and healing because as soon as you're like, okay, I don't date addicts anymore. Okay, I'm not friends with sadistic people anymore that make me feel like, I'm caretaking my mom. Okay, I don't do this maladaptive behavior anymore. And then you have a kid and all of a sudden you're like, have this whole new set of things that you're like, oh, I have no recovery or mental health around this particular thing.
Yeah.
And it's like whack-a-mole. So once you have a kid, you all know it's like, there's a lot of these studies that people want to tell you about. They're like, well, there was a study where they sat a kid next to a snake and the kid wasn't scared. I'm like, why is anyone doing a study? The one that drives me the most nuts is girls mature faster than boys. I'm like, first of all, did Epstein finance this study? Why is this a study? Right. Who cares? Like, I know some girls that, like me, had to be adults at 5, and I know other girls that at 50 are going to Coachella with feathers in their hair and henna tattoos on their face. Like, it's not.
I know.
Who needed this study to happen, and who was studying 5-year-old girls and 5-year-old boys? Like, ugh.
I remember hanging out in Hawaii when my kids were little, and I was on this whole, like, nobody eats sugar. We're not going to have sugar. Sugar's bad. So I run into this woman. She's a dentist, right? So she tells me, she's got little kids. She goes, you know what I do? I said, what? She goes, I put a bowl of candy in the middle of the house, like in the living room, so they can eat the candy anytime they want. Guess what? They don't want the candy. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting.
It's the taboo.
It's the taboo, but it's kind of along the same, like it's not a study, but it's sort of like, oh, it's a real life experience that taught me now.
Isn't this like in Europe, like they let the kids drink young and they don't have
Absolutely. Oh yeah. We go through a whole, as sober parents, we've raised 3 kids now, and our older two are, adamant that some of their behavior around alcohol was our fault because we're sober. And so they didn't grow up seeing it as a normal thing. And, our littlest one, who's about to go off to college, we're in the process of discussing how do we introduce this to her so her first freshman party isn't the first time she puts her cup in the punch and goes whack-a-mole or goes whatever she's going to go. So, but it's interesting. She has the same sort of thing. It's like, well, so I guess the point I'm making is we do the best we can and you're never going to do it right.
Oh, I remember the first time I did heroin in front of my parents.
No,
Sorry. It's an old joke and a bad one. But we're trying to, find ways to normalize it. And, but our older kids always make us feel guilty.
Yeah. Like we did something wrong by being sober parents and not letting them drink. Even though I took them to Europe when they were 14 and 16 and you could drink in Italy, right? So my son is like stealing my daughter's wine and I'm looking at him like, uh-oh.
Maybe I'm happy to be wrong. I'm a big fan of putting the fear of God in a child.
Well,
it worked for me. I saw, those drunk driving videos in school and stuff, like I got it. But maybe because I already had parents that were drunk, my mom would drive me drunk, to school and hungover, But when I was living in the South, raised by an aunt that, aunts that didn't have kids, like this is not going to go over well. But like, there was something called, she would slap me upside the head.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a slap. It was just it wasn't a
reminder. It was a reminder.
It was just like I'll do this. And she would look at me. I'd be doing, and I was like, got it. Like I felt that this person was a force to be reckoned with, and happy to be wrong. And maybe everyone says this at this, very baby stage of having a baby, but I'm very big on like, you're not my friend, dude. It is my job to keep you alive. And like, I know how quickly and how sideways things can. I grew up around accidents. I grew up around 2 drinks, accident.
Right.
I grew up on just sloppy, unnecessary. They're finding, I was reading about, an ex of mine, works in, ER and saying a lot of these sudden infant death syndrome is like drunk people that drop their, and
oh God,
what are they going to say? I was drunk and they're like, we don't know what happened, So I also think this next generation, thankfully, I think they're kind of going to look at alcohol and maybe phones the way we look at like cigarettes.
Yeah, I think so too.
They're just kind of like, you guys were just drinking poison all the time. Like, what are you doing?
It's interesting. We were always this way too. Fear of God, kind of like, don't alcohol, blah, blah, but then they get older and you'll see because, as much as we did that, like with one of the particular ones I'm thinking of, it didn't fucking matter. They did whatever they were. I mean, it was genetically predisposed, whatever it was.
Yep.
So yes, I hear you. And when mine were babies, hence the like, no sugar, no TV, no nothing. And you do that. And even I would even dress them. I would be like, look, you're wearing what I want you to wear till they're like 7 or 8. And then they're wearing Disney t-shirts. And you're like, oh my God,
they're wearing
you're
capes,
little princess. Yeah.
But I think it's also like, a couple things. Number one, I'm really big on like, oh no, it's just the law.
Right. That's good.
I mean,
that's good.
I don't make the laws. Like if you want to pass a law that teenagers should be able to do shots, like make that but like, it's also the law. Also, I think maybe a lot of it as I hear you talk is like, you'll always know, like I didn't mess, my parents, like I don't think were necessarily capable of guilt, but when they had strokes and were in hospitals for 10 years, truly 10 years, there was this sense of guilt and shame that you will never have to live with of like, oh, I should have done that. I should have been harsher.
Absolutely.
I'm just parenting you, dude, in a way where I can live with myself. And that's probably a good.
Well, we do have a hard line with drugs because drugs are not what drugs were when I was taking drugs. And
now it's called medicine. So you have to really watch it.
Well, there's that part, but then also there's the party drugs where we're definitely a no drug policy. We're just like, and we're just trying to teach the safety rules around once you go to college. As we watched our older daughter who was pretty like, contained and then went to college. And there's a different, you control them as much as you can. So
I just don't know anyone who's like, I mean, maybe you're an exception. I don't know. Like, if you two, you're so successful, they can come back at you. But just like, I think for me, it's like, I can't think of that many people who are raging alcoholics whose like lives are going. I would do it if it worked.
Well, I hear you. 100%.
It just doesn't, Jimi Hendrix is dead. I mean, Prince is dead. Like, Matthew Perry is gone. Like, there's no long-term, this never works out.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you'll be the one. Maybe you'll be the one.
Yeah. Well,
it works for her, but.
Isn't that the thing? You always
think it won't happen to me.
It won't happen to me.
That's the denial.
You're the one that's going to figure it out. And, my favorite, person I know who, is sober, not my favorite. I don't have to rank them. But, exactly. All right. He's number 1. You're number 2, Katey. You're 3. But if you work a little harder in this conversation, I could bump up. We could get you to 1. If you'll be my friend, I'll put you first. But no, he's very as someone that is, a sponsor to other alcoholics. He's very like, if someone calls him and is like, I really want to drink. He's like, go drink. Like, maybe it'll work for you. Like, I like, it didn't work for me, but like this could be, maybe all you needed was 3 months in a program and like, maybe it's going to work. And then they go and it hasn't gone well yet, but like people, I do believe have to have the dignity of their own experience.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But in like the programs I'm, in detachment and allowing people to have the dignity of their own experience and don't micromanage or martyr, but like, it's your kid. I don't know how to be detached.
One day at a time. That's how you be. You'll how old is your kid?
15 months.
Oh my God. You have a teeny weeny wag.
Let's just slide into that quickly. The idea of wanting to be in the box, which I'm assuming is what led to the career choices, right?
In the TV box.
In the TV box. Yeah. And that was the goal from the jump in terms of realizing you had that skill.
Yeah. So what happened?
I mean, the great thing about, I'm a stand-up comedian first and foremost, and it's wild when people ask me how this happened. I'm like, the main skill I had was trying to make drunk people laugh, like trying to put them in a good mood. Like, wow, I'm not saying that people that grew up in a home without alcoholics, that they had to cheer up can't become comedians. But, for us, when you come from the kind of stuff we come from, the hard things are easy and the easy things are hard, So for me, it's like, being on stage and just getting attention at all costs, is something that came naturally to me. And I think when you grow up, this word I think is very overused right now, but like kind of gaslit by people, going on stage as a performer, we're kind of all going, you guys see this, right? That's what comics do. We're like, you see this, right? And everyone laughs and you go, okay, I'm not crazy. That's what comedy is. You say something you believe is true and cut through the lies and everyone goes, yes, we see that too. And you go, okay, I'm not crazy. So that came very naturally to me. And then in terms of, being in television, and I don't want to be like too unctuous or make you uncomfortable, Katie, but your show and specifically your character was a very big part of me wanting to make sitcoms. And I wanted to make sitcoms because my anesthesia was Married with Children and Roseanne and Martin, like multicams were just my whole life, and shows that were just, we are going to make you laugh, and there was a little bit of emotion there too, as well, and pathos, but, and now there's this thing of we have to tell you how to vote with our TV shows. And it's just like, guys.
I still want to make a sitcom. I'm trying to make a sitcom right now because I think they're great if they're done right.
I agree. So I went back and I worked on the Roseanne reboot for a year. Then it got, a little chaotic, but same. The best drug, and it seems like between all of us, we've tried them all. I believe the best drug is actually nostalgia. So a multicam right now, I think, is what we all kind of need. And so then I moved to LA, and there was no, it wasn't like an option. It was like,
where did you start doing stand up though? Did you go to New York or did you come here?
I went straight to Los Angeles. So I went to college in Philadelphia. When I was there, I was working. I do feel very grateful that I was a very competitive athlete in high school. My dad valued athletic excellence as well. So to try to make him pay attention to me, I played basketball super competitively. And then, I had to start working for money. So I did work as a model, not like a fancy one. I was walking around malls in wedding dresses, I was standing on boxes in pantyhose and a big white thing, on the fourth floor. I was 14 years old in wedding dresses.
Did you eat a French fry?
It was, the whole thing was so dark, and it's like a Christopher Guest movie that he wouldn't even want to make. It's too bleak. I was doing maternity catalogs at 13 with a bean bag in my stomach. And so by the time I got to college, I was spending the weekends doing informal modeling and stuff like that. So I was already kind of starting to get the deal of not the business per se, but I was getting the memo of, if you need to be this size, be this size, no skin off my back. You need me to be a size 0? Got it. My mom already taught me how to put orange juice on cotton balls. My mom had eating disorder. So I was like, I got it. I already know you can just eat artichokes with butter all day and that's all you have to eat, So a lot of these horrific things as kids just kind of perfectly gave me the skill set to pursue something deeply toxic because I didn't see it as hard or weird. And then I went straight to LA. And when I tell you, I was Googling casting offices, just showing up with tapes. I didn't even know what I didn't know.
Right.
And I think there was a couple, honestly. Oh, well, that was around the time that I did get rejected by Scientology. So that was a tough first, moment in LA. When
it's a tough audition.
It's a tough one. You literally can be a homeless drug addict and they say yes.
Right.
So I knew I really needed to pull it together. And then I just kept going. I was doing focus groups, for $50. I was in an acting class and I worked at the acting class, Leslie Kahn, bless her heart, in exchange for classes. And, I met Sean Lennon, who is John Lennon's son.
Right.
We became friends, totally platonic. Sometimes he would stay at my house when Carrie Fisher's house, he couldn't find the key, and he would leave clothes at my house sometimes, and I would sell his shirts.
Oh.
At Buffalo. He would have a Duran Duran original band tour shirt that was worth $200, and he'd be like, "Have you seen my shirt?" I'd be like, "I haven't." So I was a full-on grifter, and then I when, the way I got into comedy is, I was interning. I thought I wanted to be a journalist, which is kind of part of being a comedian in a way, kind of like ratchet lawyers and journalists. I interned at a local radio news station in DC, and I had to read the teleprompter because I was like, oh, I'm going to be like a news lady. That'll get me on the TV the fastest, right? And I was reading the teleprompter, and it was, local news is always like horrific, just intended to stress you out for no reason. And it was about a child that had been kidnapped, and they put up the photo of the kid. And I just instinctively, humor is how I always coped. Our whole family did. That's that like Appalachia like spirit. And I just started like roasting this kid. I'm like, whoever kidnapped this kid is like, is I blind? Look for a blind person. Like, I just kept making jokes. Like, I couldn't deal with the discomfort of this horrific thing. And I was like, okay, I don't think objective journalism is for me. And so then people started telling me I was funny. When I just talked I wanted to be a serious actor. I was like Nora in a doll's house at the studio theater. Like, I wanted that. But when I would just talk, people would laugh. And I didn't understand why. And I was like, okay. People were like, you should do comedy. You should do comedy. And I was like, and so then I got that show Punked. It was on MTV. It was like a prank show. Mm-hmm. And again, I wasn't trying to be funny. So that was actually what ended up getting me the job, because when people tried to be funny, that would give away the prank. So I just kept going. I mean, I looked at my 20s. Is that
before stand-up? Is that before you went to like a club with a thing, with an act kind of thing?
That was right before.
Got it.
And then people were like, you should do stand-up. And then as soon as someone said it, they were like, oh, like you should do, I was like, oh, that's right. That's what I'm a stand-up. Like, it was very clear. And then I was just like, I'm a stand-up. I went and got a manager. I went into his office, Barry Katz, bless his heart. And I was like, I'm a stand-up. I need a manager. And he was like, oh, can you show me a tape? And I was like, well, I haven't done stand-up yet, but I love it. And he was like, you're so crazy. I think this might be true. And he like,
that was like fantastic.
Yeah. He's like, this is so insane. I think you might succeed.
Can you buy me some tape so I can?
Yeah, totally. I was just like, no, I haven't done it yet, but I need a manager now because I'm about to get successful. And he was like, let's just see how this goes, So I think there's a certain amount of,
balls, baby.
But when you come from this kind of stuff, that's not what it feels. It's just like, no, I've just like, there's a level of, I think when you come from, I remember reading the Secret was going around for a while, of like, you manifest. I'm like, oh, I've done this my whole life, but it's been, a therapist would say, checking out and disassociating
and surviving.
Yeah. I've already been manifesting being on Oprah for 10 years in a basement. Right. Like, I got this, so.
Wow, this is like really revelatory, everything you're saying. I'm so relating. Yes. Yeah.
It just was like, there was something to be said for just going. And I think when you grow up in alcoholic home, like Hollywood, this unfair thing where people are mercurial, and like, this is my whole childhood. Like, I got this, like a bunch of like, creepy men, like, oh, so what's scary? Like, this is just my default, like,
wow.
It's one big family reunion here. So I think that, it's changing, obviously, a little bit, but
did you start doing open mics then? How did you, like, when you get the manager, then he says, go do 10 minutes at the Comedy Store, go do 10 minutes here or there?
I was really lucky with the way this manager, because female comedians, there's a little bit of a danger of getting seen too early before you're actually good.
Oh.
And he said something because I was like so desperate to make it. And I think he could tell, like, this isn't about being good at comedy. Like, this is some internal engine that is like, it is a need, not a want. And he said, he's like, because I'm like, I need to go to Montreal and I need to showcase for this thing. And he was like, kill 10 times in a row and everyone will be talking about you. And that was such amazing advice. Just get good first and everything else will come naturally. Who is it that says, be so good they can't ignore you? Steve Martin. Because if you're inconsistent, sometimes good, sometimes bad, that's way worse than always being bad. Right? Because then people are going to actually see you and then you're going to fall on your face. So I really appreciated that the philosophy I got out of the gate was just like, get good. And then stand up is like, at the time, I can argue it's still the case now, but it's very much a meritocracy. And once I realized, like, cause acting and stuff, I'd get close on something, but I was taller than the actor. And this other thing would happen. And it was like, I wasn't pretty enough to be the girl next door, but I was too tall to be this person. I wasn't quirky enough. I was just like, okay, this is so much is out of my control. But when I learned stand up is like a meritocracy, the more you do it, the better you get. I'm addicted because no one will work harder than me. And my workaholism is so intense that I was just so, every time you get on stage, you got better. Like every time.
Were there certain people that you watched that influenced you when you first got there that were maybe kind to you?
Yes. There was a lot of adversity that I think they tried to put on me, but it was like, okay, like come at me. There's something kind of, comforting about that, like just knowing the shoe was dropped. So all the hazing and all that, of course it happens. Sebastian Maniscalco, I'm sure you know, he would come he was a waiter at the Four Seasons, and he would come in, his spot would be at 11:45. He'd come in at 11:44, go on stage on his break from the Four Seasons, and then go back. He would say hi. He was always polite. I always watch him come in and leave. And I went, oh, you can do that. Cause I was always like, well, I have to talk to everyone so no one thinks I'm a bitch. And so nobody thinks that, and it's I'm a people pleaser, and I want everyone to like me, and I want everyone to think that I'm nice and and say nice things about me. And I'm trying to control everyone's perception of me. No one's perception matters. Everyone's made up their mind about you. No one in this hallway is ever going to like you. There is no point in trying. Get in and get out. And seeing that kind of energy conservation, because in something like stand up, it's a lot of people pleasers, trying to do everything they can except actually write jokes.
Right.
You can delude yourself into being like, well, hanging out till 4 a.m. I'm around comics, but you're not actually improving. And that gave me permission to really treat it like a job. I was so afraid everyone was going to think I was a dork. I would like hide my notebook. I would pretend I like didn't memorize and work hard all day on jokes. And I was, you know what? I'm a dork. This is who I am. Like Sebastian gave me the permission to treat it professionally and not be like, I need to be friends with everybody. You know, like, this is like a workplace. Or
be flirted with by everybody. I mean, I would think here comes this hot girl comic, and you know that's a pretty gritty world. Those guys, and you know, even though a lot of insecurity, so I don't even know if they would hit on the hot female comic. But
it's the same thing with Scientology. I'm too mouthy. I'm not a fun person. Like, you know, this just isn't worth it. No, there's agents in this business that I've talked to since that we're friends with, and he's like. And I'm like, remember when I came in and I tried to, I thought you were going to sign me and it didn't work out. And they're like, no, I was trying to date you. You were just so ambitious. Like it never occurred to me. When your dad is not interested in you, it doesn't occur to you that any man is interested in you.
100%. Yeah.
I was like, why would anyone want to date me? Like, I'm just like this piece of shit. Like, so I missed it all. So even if people were flirting with me, I just, you know, everyone's like, oh, Whitney has Asperger's and she's this and she's on Adderall. I'm like, no, it doesn't occur to me that someone, you know, but I've, you know, worked on that since, but I was so clear whether this was like some Darwinian instinct, like do not piss where you eat. People would say that I was like sleeping with comics to get ahead as if that's a thing. When I wasn't, I'm like, if I actually date a comic, I can only imagine how bad it would be, you know? And I just knew like, this is my job forever. I'm not going to piss where I eat. And I got really lucky that in a way, my insecurity protected me in that moment. And I was also very weird socially.
No, I think,
you know, I had
everything
also some physical abuse as a child, and I like didn't really like to be like touched. I wasn't a flirty person. I was a very, I still am, you know, I think that there's something to be said for that. Like I, you know, I try to hide in plain sight sometimes. And the danger is people will conflate that and think you're a bitch. She's standoffish. And I'm like, no, I'm just scared of humans.
It's just the woman's plight. They just think a man is strong if he's doing that. But us, I know it's still there. It still hangs around that trope, which is.
And I was just like never really a flirty person. I'm not good at it. Like I just, you know, so, and I'm just not a fun target. Like I'm not.
Well, thank God. See, another reason all that trauma growing up, I'm telling you, it does. It makes us like, what are those animals with the really hard shells that we see in Africa? An armadillo. Yeah. It makes us like that.
Turtles too, yeah.
Turtles too, yeah.
But also, I think that, you know, when you, sometimes low self-esteem benefits, I think comedy has really been a masterclass in knowing when you're low self-esteem, for lack of a better word, critical I mean, we spend all the time going like, get rid of your inner critic. I look at some people these days, I'm like, you need a louder inner critic. we shouldn't get rid of all of it, you know?
Yeah.
Black and white thinking, it's like all or nothing. But a comedian, when you're on stage, you should be incredibly insecure. You should be incredibly like, that didn't work. I need to make that better. That didn't work. But as soon as you get off stage, you got to turn it off.
Right.
Because it's going to mess up your relationships. You know, I don't know if this is the case for you when you're writing and you're acting and you're like, well, I can't just be like, I nailed that. You know,
never.
You should be hard on yourself.
Yeah.
No. We don't. Yeah.
No, you always think this is the one where they'll figure it out.
Well, this is why I think it's so incredibly wonderful that for those of us lucky enough to have been so fucked up that we had to find a recovery spot, I know for me, I've been so able to compartmentalize what I really am as compared to what I am perceived to be by my public life. And so it has just definitely given me, you know, a sense of what really matters, you know, which ultimately is love and service, which is how I've had to maneuver my life, as my husband would say the same, because that other stuff is just so fleeting. You know, it's like when we're depending on other people for anything, really. I mean, not to be so cynical or dark, but people are fallible. We're all kind of fallible. We're just all messed up. So to have a sense that there is something that you can depend on for kids like us that grew up that way has just been so freeing to be able to let go of that I am what I do thing. You know, I am what I do. It's so, because, you know, when you're leaning into that all the time, there's no consistency. There's no happiness.
The rock bottom with that, you know, I think for a lot of us, I'll speak for myself, was the pandemic, when it was like, I couldn't do stand up. And I'm like, I dyed my hair blue. I started smoking weed. It was like, without doing what I do, I didn't know what I was without that. And, you know, that was pretty terrifying.
Yeah, it is. But it's also when you can finally get into the knowledge that we truly aren't what we do. That is just an expression of who we are, you know, one piece of who we are.
I was reading a little bit into terror management theory. I'm not an expert at all. The book's called The Worm at the Core. It's about like, we're the only species of animal that knows we're going to die. So in order to manage our terror, we have to either numb ourselves or create lasting things. That's why we need trophies and why we need family crests.
Wait, we're going to die?
Apparently so, yes.
Sorry.
Denial is also a great one.
You're the one in the ice plunge all day. You're not. You'll be fine.
Sorry.
You'll be fine.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
What's the name of that book?
It's called The Worm at the Core. And I think that you're saying something that's making me realize, I think that, you know, when you're a conscious person and you want to edify yourself, we spend all day going, I could have done that better. And, that was not great. And, I need to make an amends for that. Or, I just should have done this better. I feel like we're all doing pretty good, given the circumstance. The fact that we're not in the streets, just crashing,
eating
cars
each other. Yes.
It's eating each other. Like, truly.
Yes.
It's like the only reason we're not is because it's not keto. But I feel like we're all doing pretty. When I'm on the freeway with a bunch of people, even when people are cutting each other off, I'm like, none of us have killed each. This is like kind of amazing how much we do cooperate, how much patience we do have with each other, given we're designed to meet like 30 people our entire life.
Wow.
We're in this mess. Something else that comforted me is that, number one, the dead internet theory, which is sort of like the idea that a lot of what's on the internet is just like bots. Like, it's not even like they've sort of are able to duplicate the kind of voices that create controversy, because that's what, you know, drives engagement, our addiction to adrenaline, our addiction to self. I think we'll look back in like 30, maybe 20 years on the internet and phones, the way that we look at cigarettes now, like the idea of like, they just smoked inside whenever they wanted. Like, they didn't have to take a test and a mental health quiz before they just got on Twitter, you know, but that a lot of it's fake that we're seeing, kind of like a mirage. And the statistic of, 22% of people are on Twitter. Of that, 2% generate 80% of the comments.
Wow.
So much of what we think is, because don't you have conversations with people, and every conversation is, everyone's just gone crazy. And you're like, wait, none of us are. we're all saying everyone. Who's
No,
this everyone?
I mean, that goes right along with my theory that we just know too much. There's just too much access to I'll never forget when my older daughter was in college and I was bitching about something, and she had this very bright friend who just said, look, the world has always been a mess. There's always been chaotic things. We just never knew about it. We never knew about it.
Kids on phones. Kids worked in factories and had their limbs cut off. It's
exactly.
always been. I'm sure there were people who were like, that sucks,
Right.
We should not allow that.
We also, by the way, in you saying we know too much, I also believe that we've saved too much time. And, it used to be to run errands. We used to run errands.
Right.
Now it's like you got Amazon delivering it to you. You got someone bringing you your dinner. You got your online banking. We used to go to the bank. Now we have all this free time.
Right.
And we're spending all this free time just like obsessing about murder. I mean, there's videos where you can watch someone get murdered on Twitter, like without even asking, and we're watching planes crash, and we're just like, we used to just so much of our day was like, I got to walk to the cheese store.
I'm still running errands. I'm a big errand runner.
There's a statistic about how much time we spend on the internet looking for ways to save time. That is, talk about the sad irony of humanity.
Right.
But it's absurd, right? And that's what we do with the free time that we just eat, it just eats itself,
Wow.
Here's what we should do. We should do the pie now, right?
Oh, okay.
Then I want to find out the transition into some, apparently there was some, are you married? I don't know.
Yeah, what's the baby thing?
We have to know.
We have to talk about baby.
Because now, how does all that shit we're talking about impact you're looking and laughing at somebody.
My boyfriend's hiding.
Oh, you have a boyfriend. Very nice.
So I'm not with the father of my son. This will come as a shock to nobody. White trash till I die.
I'm not going to tell anybody?
No, he's not a public figure at all.
Okay.
But he's super awesome. We met, both my parents, were in nursing homes for a long time, and my life was very much just like on hold, caretaking that whole nightmare. And I just, was like, I guess I'm not gonna have kids. I guess I'm gonna adopt or whatever. But then, I met someone when I was going through my mother being in hospice, and he's younger than me. He was awesome. I mean, that when someone's in crisis, or a tragedy hits, you really see their character. And I hadn't known him long, but he was just like incredible. People that are alive in a time of crisis. That's not good. They make it about them. There's other people that cannot handle crisis and they just shut down and they're out. Like the way he handled it was just like so elegant. Just incredible. And I just fell in love with who he was as a person. It was very clear to me, like, we're not a match. Like you'd be an amazing dad. And I was just like, if it happens, it happens. If not, and I don't want to do what my parents did, which is like, we have a kid, let's stay together, let's force it. I'm not going to bring a kid into that. I refuse to perpetuate that cycle. If this happens, like, how cool, like, our kid will never know any different. And, he went back to North Carolina where he's from. And, I figured like no dice. And then 3 months later, I was like, okay, I'm having a kid.
Wow.
This awesome dude. And, I just was like, you know what? I've tried so hard to be traditional and conventional in my personal life, but that's never worked for me in my professional life. Why am I trying so hard to do this Norman Rockwell painting? Because I was just like, in order to have a kid, I have to get a husband. And I'm like, I don't know that many people that's gone great for. Why am I trying to do this so bad? Like the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So I was like, why not just let God decide? And then I have a boyfriend of a year who, the person that signs up to date a girl with a 2-month-old, like,
hello. Yeah, that's a good guy.
There he is. Chris Cole. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Chris Cole. Hi.
He's drawing.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
He notes.
My husband came along when I had a 4 and a 6-year-old, and that too was like, wow. Anybody that will sign up for that. So that shows that's a lot.
That's it. I think that it's, takes a long time to reveal someone's character. Not that people are actively trying to deceive you. I think sometimes, you want to get the person. And I found myself even auditioning to try to get someone, and then you get them and you're just like, wait, why was I doing like
Right.
now I got you to fall in love with me, but
Did you always know you wanted to be a mom? Was that something that was in your being?
Yes. And I think it was a very misguided, I was mothering adults.
Oh, I
didn't
see.
need
Right.
mothering.
Right.
And I have, 22 fostered pit bulls in my garage, and I'm like getting racehorses. I was mothering, in a lot of different ways. But I think that I was so scared of, if I have a child with someone, you're attached to them forever. And I was just so scared of that, given what I come from. And so I just sort of was like, it'll happen. I froze my eggs when I was 33, which I think was an amazing decision. But I do think it also made me go like, I got all the time in the world,
Right.
But I was terrified of being stuck with someone. I didn't trust my judgment. I trust my judgment very much mothering, but not my judgment in picking a partner.
Right.
I had completely lost trust in my ability to pick. Was I picking out of ego? Was I picking out of the disease of wanting to caretake someone? Was I trying to date my dad? Was I,
I picked to have babies. I picked for babies. Yet, should we do the pie? Oh, we're getting we're getting a pie thing. So we're going to eat and keep talking.
I love that y'all do this, because I feel like when on my podcast I eat, people are like, I have misophonia, so it would bother me, but I like hearing people eat.
Is misophonia, what is that? Is that an eating thing? There you go, babe.
Dax Shepard talked about that.
Dax has that too?
Yeah,
is that the eating thing?
He couldn't handle when people were like
Eating?
eating.
The sound of eating?
It's when you can't handle something that's not the sound of your own voice.
Oh,
It's a
wow.
joke.
Yeah.
So you have a baby, which is so fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, 14 months? How old did you say?
He's 15 months.
15 months.
And it's been also such a miracle, and just of like what we're talking about my mind was so warped. And I don't think it's just in the business that we're all in, like, the level of narcissism required to, in what I do, you got to be like, hey guys, I'm in Pensacola next week. Come see me. I mean, when I signed up to be a comedian, other people promoted you. You didn't have to promote yourself. Had I known this was coming, I don't think I would have been able to be a stand-up. Like, my thing is I talk about how I'm a piece of shit, not I'm awesome, come see me. I'm like, I can't do that. And so I was so like disgusted by I was like, why is my self-esteem getting lower? Like I've achieved all this stuff. Like this was supposed to work. And I just realized like, I was just so sick of myself. And once my son came, I realized like, oh, no. I like myself when I'm not thinking about myself 24 hours a day. When I think about myself like an hour a day, like
I totally relate. When I had my kids, that was the biggest relief to think about somebody else and not worry. I mean, it was like the sky parted. I mean, not only did my heart grow exponentially, which everybody said it would happen. And I was just like, oh my God, I just can't believe this is happening. And just huge, big heart. And then also just the relief of not being about me all the time.
Oh God. It was just like, geez, because it's the piece of shit in the center of the universe thing of like, like.
And plus you're in show business. And so it's just like, show off business just gets so, I'm done showing off.
So many things that,
this is good.
I'd been working on for so long just crystallized for me, like the body image stuff, which, every woman has in some iteration. It was just like, oh, my body's not about making men that I don't want to date anyway think my body's good. It's like I look at it as like my son's first apartment now. It's just kind of like,
what's
his
name?
Apartment. Henry.
Oh, that's beautiful. And does the baby daddy have anything to do with Henry?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he does. Okay, great.
He's awesome.
Baby
daddy. Yeah. He lives like 3 hours north. He moved from North Carolina, and then I do stand up on the weekends. And so he hangs out with him on the weekends, and it's like perfect. I wasn't trying to be super strategic or calculated or anything, but like he's younger. He's like a computer programmer. Like he was a fencer. Like he'll be able to teach my son all the stuff that I know nothing about. And so I'm excited for my son that the guy that I'm with he's going to have like two amazing father figures in his life. And, my challenge is always to just keep my ego out of it and go, let's, cooperate with co-parenting him. And if you're going to do something that I don't necessarily think is a good idea, like,
let's work it out.
I have to be okay with that. As long as it's not putting him in danger, like, I just have to let you be able to parent him. And I think that's always the thing. As a mama bear, you want to, you can't like emasculate the dad trying to be a good mom. That's not good either.
I kind of consider it like, this is going to sound so corny, but I don't mean it to be, but I kind of consider it like the traditions that we talk about in our recovery rooms, that it was ever is best for the whole, whatever, that it's really not about me or him or the baby, whatever. It's what's best for the whole. And sometimes, majority wins, and that's just how you have to look at it.
And when did I become an expert on parenting?
Exactly. Nobody. No, oh God.
Maybe he's right.
Hello.
Maybe he's right. Or maybe the best thing for my son is for his dad to make a mistake and go, hey, I made a mistake. Right. Sorry, bud.
Maybe you have a great nanny and they're right. I mean, it really is a lot of people.
Yeah. Like it's just sort of like this thing. I think this is an epidemic across all, where you see, your friend that works at Jiffy Lube thinks they're an expert in politics all of a sudden. Right. Like everyone's just like, thinks they're an authority on everything. And you're like, okay, so on one hand, you keep saying that all news is fake, but on the other hand, you're an expert on all the news. So which is it? It's like,
right,
the pyramids, and here's what happened on the pyramids. It's like, okay, we grew up learning that Thanksgiving was like a fun dinner, but like we thought Columbus discovered America. It just gets debunked every couple years. So let's just have a loose attachment to the truth. And, I think that it's been an amazing exercise to just be going like, I don't know. And look, I'm not going to actively inflict adversity on my son, but I know adversity is kind of good for a kid. So I'm not going to try to protect him so much that he doesn't develop grit.
This is too why you have to wear it like a loose garment, which I did not know at the time. It's because they change every 6 months. So just when you think, I got it down. They're sleeping. They're eating at the right time. Then they'll do something different.
I think
so. They're the big teachers of flexibility.
I think that you and Whitney should be friends.
I think Whitney and I are now friends.
I think you should. I think you guys should hang out.
I know.
And chat. Because you guys are like
such a sweetheart. Yes, I'm with you. I'm there.
I'll join your cult. I'm in.
So tell us, why apple pie?
It's always my go-to because I think as a horse girl,
makes sense.
Apple everything all the time, because I think I always thought in terms of anything I would order at a restaurant or I would always get anything apple so that I could carry it with me and give it to a horse.
Oh, so sweet.
Just in case.
Yeah. Totally. Like I'll bring half of this apple pie to my horse. So I always go directly to peach is like, I think the best pie, if I'm going to be honest.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
There's actually Bing cherry, but those to me, I like to save for special occasion.
I'm with the cherry.
Yeah.
The cherry for me is the top. Yep.
That's it. But if you eat it too much, then
then it's no good. Then it's
not
just
the top.
That's exactly right.
Like a true addict, I like to schedule my using so that it's maximum effect.
That's right. It's all about the plan. What now you can tell us about anything you'd like to talk about in terms of celebrity and showbiz
and work and promotion.
Are you doing anything?
Do you have anything
like
you need to sell?
You want to? Do you have some face cream you need to sell? Now's the time to.
Oh, that's so funny. No. My thing is that everyone knows how to use Google. Everyone knows everyone has a website. I'm not going to push myself on anybody, ever, but, I'm on tour. I do stand up. And what I will say is at a time where I think anyone can listen to YouTube talk. Like that's so great. Why would anyone leave their house? Like people's like heroes have podcasts that they can listen to. Like, but going out to comedy shows, it doesn't have to be mine. I find is like so healing because I think we have this narrative that everyone hates each other and no one can get along. And I think that we all have gotten so, whether it's agoraphobic or just why leave the house, you get the alternative data and the proof of like, no, people are reasonable. There's 3,000 people in this theater, shoulder to shoulder, all laughing at the same stuff. I'm saying crazy stuff on stage. No one's trying to cancel me. No one's trying to, say I'm a problematic. People know how to take a joke. It's just we're seeing a very specific percentage of people and we feel like it's everybody.
Right.
So it's more like encouragement, like go outside, like go to a show.
Do you go to comedy shows?
You know, I'm at the Comedy Store usually when I'm in LA. And so I'll pop in when other people are performing and stuff. And it's also just good to see people that are actively going out to seek joy instead of trying to get that hit of self-righteous.
All right. Well, that could be our first date, Whitney. I would like to go to a comedy club with you. So I'm asking you out on a date and, you know, I won't know.
Can I chaperone?
Kurt can come. Kurt can come and
I'll just
chaperone. Well,
I'll
we could do a double date. You have your boyfriend. We could all have an evening at the Comedy Store, which we would, you know, we live really close to. So that would be convenient for us.
A dream.
Yeah.
Yes.
That would be great.
Love it. It's all our people. Like it's a similar
I would love
energy
that.
of people.
I would love that.
You know? And now comics are cold plunging. Joe Rogan cold plunges. So you'll have a lot to talk about.
Oh boy.
I don't think Neil Brennan does. When Neil Brennan was just here. I wonder if he's a cold plunger. He's a Hawaii goer.
He is. I gotta I wanted to do the, like a toad drug, or you eat it for,
you lick
it all the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Right. Yeah.
I think it's amazing just to see his journey,
we love Neil.
Time.
Yeah,
we do love him. Yeah. He's great. Yeah, he's really amazing. He's a new friend. We just met him.
I love comics. He loves
comics.
So
comics, like for better or worse, we just say what's true.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be heroic these days. Now the idea is that comics are the heroes we need. We're like, you mean we're not like lying it? Like it's just kind of, I think that when we all find each other, it's a very good thing.
It is a good thing.
Yeah.
You're a good thing.
It's a beautiful service.
I think we have to end.
We have to end.
We've kept you a very long time. Where's the baby? Is the baby sleeping?
Oh my God, where is the baby?